All right, today I was fortunate enough to witness the bravery, the courage, the might of the U.S. military firsthand as I traveled with our First Lady, Melania Trump, to Joint Base Anacostia and Joint Base Langley, and then to the awe-inspiring aircraft carrier, the USS George H.W. Bush, where I had the opportunity to sit down with our First Lady. Take a look. Stay true to myself. You use that term a lot. And I want you to expand on that. What does that mean, considering, and I'll ask you about your roots a little bit, but that stuck out to me.
I do what I think it's right. I know I will get the criticism from the public or from the media, but I will do what is right and what I feel it's right for the country and for the people. And that's what I say. I want to stay true to myself and listen myself and what to do and what is right, what is wrong, and live meaningful life every day.
We're going to have that full interview in just a few minutes, along with our highlights of an incredible trip. Where do you see these planes landing and taking off? It's unbelievable. First, we do have updates on the Mueller partisan witch hunt. Today, Michael Cohen, he was sentenced to 3 years in prison after he pled guilty to tax evasion, making false statements on a bank loan application, lying to Congress about building a building project that never even got off the ground, and a questionable campaign finance violation. Notice something missing? No Trump-Russia collusion. None. Again, it's also important to note, Michael Cohen does not have a cooperation agreement with federal prosecutors. And meanwhile, tonight, another top target of this Mueller witch hunt, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, is asking a federal judge for leniency and no jail time. He pleaded guilty to lying to investigators, but only after legal bills wrecked his family finances, forced this man, 33-year veteran, 5 years of combat, to have to sell his home, and probably was most likely threatening punitive action against his son and his business partner. He fell on the sword like probably 99% of fathers would do. And tonight we are learning some disgusting new details surrounding how Lieutenant General Michael Flynn was treated by top federal officials. Now, according to Flynn's sentencing request, then Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe pressured then National Security Advisor Flynn not to have a lawyer present during a seemingly relaxed, casual meeting with the FBI, the one that they said he lied at, except nobody believed he lied. Flynn agreed to sit down without attorneys present and was then subsequently charged with lying during that very meeting. Now, keep in mind, Andrew McCabe was ultimately fired from the FBI for him lying to the Bureau, and he is currently facing no charges. According to FoxNews.com, Flynn's filing also seemingly demonstrates that the FBI took a significantly more aggressive tack in handling the Flynn interview than it did during other similar matters. For example, quote, no one interviewed during the FBI's Clinton email investigation was hit with false statement charges, though investigators believed those witnesses were untruthful. Big difference. And so as we now know, that is called the two-tier justice system. And by the way, this might be part of the worst part of Flynn's political persecution. The agents interviewing Flynn, they never thought he lied. That is such a miscarriage of justice and an abuse of power corruption scandal, one of the biggest in American history, as we've been telling you. And, of course, you're not likely to hear about any of this on any other media, especially over at Conspiracy TV MSNBC, especially not on the liberal Morning Joe show, where the hosts literally spend hours every single day trying to outdo themselves, trading insults about Donald Trump and the Trump family and anybody associated with Trump. Now, it's a pretty sad and scary way to start your morning, but today, co-host Mika Brzezinski went too far. He used this pretty disgusting slur just before 9 a.m. Take a look.
I understand that Donald Trump doesn't care. Heilman makes a good point. He doesn't care. But why doesn't Mike Pompeo care right now? Are the pathetic deflections that we just heard when he appeared on Fox and Friends, is that a patriot speaking or a wannabe dictator's butt boy? And I'm dead serious. I'm asking, are these the words of a patriot?
Wow. Questioning his patriotism? Unbelievable. Over the top. And then following the show on the other part of the issue, and she issued an apology on Twitter about her language. Some bad choice of words. I should have said water boy, like for football teams or something like that. Yeah, Mika, pretty bad choice of words. But we're consistent on this program. We don't call for boycotts. We don't call for firings of any kind. In fact, when Mika's colleague, MSNBC host Joy Reid, when she was in hot water over homophobic and conspiracy-filled blog that she had, We never called for her to be fired or for her show to be boycotted. People do make mistakes. People are not perfect. And I think we're all human. And I don't believe anybody's career, in my honest opinion, should be ruined over a stupid mistake. And by the way, she's no fan of mine, and neither is Liberal Joe. And I doubt they would do this for any opinion host here at Fox News. But it's sad to see Trump derangement syndrome claim yet another victim. And, of course, there were many warning signs as the anti-Trump vitriol got worse and worse and worse. Let's take a look.
It is clear the president is stunningly ignorant. Probably the most ignorant president we will ever have. He's ignorant. He's warped. He's obsessed with money and sex. And he finds his power through those two things. He will be forever remembered as the president who traumatized little children. That's his brand now. He's the president who purposefully traumatized babies and children. It's very almost caveman-like.
Have you seen
It really is. He's like Fred Flintstone running the country. I don't think he has the moral compass to make a decision based on our own national security. To anybody who works inside the White House, works on the national security team, works in the State Department, at some point you are working for a president who is not fit to lead, who's going to do something crazy in 5 minutes, 1 hour, tonight or tomorrow. Like, what more do you need to hear from him to start thinking 25th Amendment or something else?
We fixed it. We'll have more on this later in the show, but first we need to turn to breaking news in France. Widespread manhunt underway for the gunman in Tuesday's terror attack at a French Christmas market that left at least 2 dead. Now the 29-year-old suspect, identified right there as Sharif Chaket, allegedly shouting Allahu Akbar as he opened fire before escaping from the scene in a taxi. We're also learning tonight he had a long criminal record, and he was already on the authorities' radar for connections to radical Islam. So far, 5 other people with alleged ties to the suspect have now been detained. And even more frightening is that French authorities admit that he may have already slipped across the border into Germany. We'll keep you updated. We'll pray for the victims. Scary times. Make no mistakes. Attack like this, all these attacks underscore the need for safety and security. Like places, at our southern border, where we have caught people with terrorist ties trying to get into this country, where tonight migrant groups are literally, the ones, women and children that the media kept telling us about. Remember, they were trying to march to the U.S. consulate over Tijuana, demanding President Trump either let them into the country, or now they want us to pay them $50,000 in reparations to go home. Pay you to go home so you don't break our laws and don't disrespect our sovereignty. One group organizer arguing that it may seem like a lot of money to you, but it's a small sum compared to everything the United States has stolen from Honduras. Now, look, we all know probably the vast majority of people that come from poor countries with no opportunity, no hope for their children and grandchildren are good people searching for a better life. But demanding entry or pay you, or will overwhelm your immigration system, there's no way to act to demonstrate merit to come into this country. It's also a massive security risk. As the San Diego Tribune is reporting, thousands of migrants are now unaccounted for, writing, quote, in the group of unaccounted migrants, about 3,500 are presumed to have either crossed illegally into the U.S., moved to other Mexican border cities, or simply fallen through the cracks. That is why the president is standing firm, rightly so, on the border wall, forging ahead on keeping his promise to the forgotten men and women of this country to preserve our nation's safety and security first. Remember, a wall will literally help people on both sides be safer. And then, of course, the wall will have a big door, and you can come in legally, as the president has said. But we do have the right to vet anyone that wants to come into this country, because keeping out potential terrorists, human traffickers, drug traffickers, violent cartel members is a huge #1 priority for our national security.